Hey guys, thanks for listening to the Best Practices Show. My name is Kirk Behrendt, where I'm your host, where we take a look at the best business practices from the best dental practices all over. And I'm so glad you're here. It's crazy. I was telling Kevin before we went live, we do all this video. You guys never watch it. I'm totally cool with that. So if you're listening on Spotify or Twitch, or is it not Twitcher, Stitcher or iTunes, wherever you're listening to this podcast, number one, I always like to say this: welcome to the podcast. If you've never been here before, I just love to say welcome. You're going to see we just love this profession. I love this profession so much. You're going to see I don't really know that much. That's why I have Kevin here today, and we can ask him the great questions and we can learn together, because this is a great profession. And I know one thing: without people, without mentors, without friends, it would just be harder. So we're so glad you're here. So make sure you hit the subscribe button, because I want you to show up every single week. We're going to bring a brand new guest. They'll offer some insight, some help, a great new way to think about this profession so you can have a better practice and a better life. And I don't want you to miss out. Number two, if you're thinking, gosh, what do you guys do? Sometimes I don't even know what we do, but we're practice coaches. And so if you're thinking, gosh, I don't want to write off this much and give it all the PPOs, that's what we do. If you're thinking, I have a team and I want them to get along a little bit better, I want to be a little bit more organized, that's what we do. If you just want to work a better schedule, that's what we do. So if you're looking for some help, go to actdental.com, check out some of the resources there, and we're always willing to help and listen and see if we can give you a better way to think about it and have a little bit more fun. Now, on the note of having a little bit more fun, Kevin and I were talking before we went live, and I'm like, Kevin, you just pick the title. Like, I'll have your back. We'll go wherever. And you're like, okay, wait a minute. One of the things I do is just go in and have fun. And you said you're not that appropriate, or did you say professional, or less, you not appropriate isn't the bad word. Less professional, I think was the word that you're just casual with patients. You like to get to know them, right?
I would say both inappropriate and unprofessional.
You said it. I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't. So today, if you're listening, this is going to be fun. Now, I've only met Kevin once. We had him on our COVID-19 conference, and everybody was blown away. And Cranham was telling me, he's like, no, this guy, he's great. You're going to love him. And sure enough, you were on and you were fantastic. So we were excited to know you. But I always like for people to know you. If somebody's listening and they don't know who Dr. Kevin Kross is, give us a little insight. Who's Dr. Kevin Kross?
Oh my gosh, I'd be surprised if anybody does know me. I practice in West Michigan. We have my wife and I are both dentists. We do have two completely separate offices directly across the street from one another. She's about a pitching wedge away, and so it is kind of funny having two separate, completely opposite offices in the same town. But went to University of Michigan, graduated about 11 years ago. Cannot believe I still feel like the young guy, even though I look like the old guy all of a sudden. Yeah, I've been practicing for about 11 years. I run just my own office, and we have kind of a busy, I wouldn't say we're small, but just a very good little shop that we have there. And so we have been doing that for 11 years and have we have two little kids who might come running in here at some point. I heard one got up from the nap. One's 10 months, the other just turned 3. So it's a busy household. It's a busy life, but it's great.
Yeah, my wife and I, we have a lot of kids, so just have them come in and sit on your lap, and we'll start interviewing them. Now,
I saw the one walking by a minute ago, so we'll see.
Bring them in. I do want to ask you this question, because in 25 years of doing this, I've seen a lot of husbands and wives, practice together, practice separate. I don't know how many I've ever heard right across. Can give us a little insight, like where you're like, okay, we're going to get married, but you got to have your own. Like, what was that's pretty unique. So give us a story on that one.
Yeah, it's a little bit different. We ended up where we ended up kind of by mistake, but it worked out. We got out of school in 2010 and were associates for about a year and a half, something like that. And my wife bought a practice in 2011 or beginning of 2012 in Holland. And then about 6 months after that, I bought a practice in another town that was a little bit further away. So we practiced in those two shops for a couple of years. I ended up selling my office because another one came available down in right across the street from her. And I knew the guy. He and I clicked. I kind of knew the practice, and I said, "Man, I'd really like to be in that same town. I really like the town. I knew some people there and some friends there, and kind of explored it. Went and played a round of golf with an orthodontist, and I was telling him the story about how, could I even sell a practice in that short a time of owning it? And he's like, I know a kid looking. And
Yeah.
so one thing led to another, and I ended up buying the office and selling the one I currently own. So
Yeah.
it ended up right across the street, and yeah, it's
Do you-
been fun.
yeah. No, I like to poke fun at this, but do you ever get the occasional patient who's like, yeah, I was over there. I didn't really like it. And then you razz your wife about it a little bit. Has that ever, or vice versa?
I
Somebody come from
it's
your
it's way more likely the vice versa. She's so much nicer than I am. But no, surprisingly, we haven't run into that too much.
All right.
So it's worked out okay. We do a little bit different types of things in our practices, so we do refer back and forth a little bit. She practices under her maiden name, so a lot of people don't even know, we're related in any way. But it's worked out well. We've had very few hiccups that way.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Someday you'll get a chance to meet and I love my wife is like the greatest blessing ever. And I like working for her when I go home. And then I like being in charge of my own domain. So I have a little bit of a control thing. So I can
Sure.
kind of understand that. If my wife was a dentist, I'd be like, you'd have to have your own thing. Like I couldn't
That's
just,
that's kind of what we said. There's no way we can do this. We just have very different personalities,
yeah.
and yeah, I don't think it'd work if we were in the same office.
No.
Not very well, anyway.
Yeah. Now you and I were talking before we went live. Like this is a great profession. You've been out for over a decade now, and it is a stressful profession. You've been on a great path, and sometimes it can be an isolating profession. And then, as I was asking you before we went, like, what's one of your favorite? You're like, I don't know. I just like talking to people, and uh, give us a little perspective on how you see dentistry. It looks like you enjoy it a lot. You enjoy the people more than I'm going to go this far, probably more than the teeth or the science behind it. But give us, I want to hear your perspective, your philosophy on if I was a young dentist and I came to you and I said, Kevin, thinking about being a dentist, what would you share with me about your philosophy?
Oh my gosh. It's interesting because we are mentoring a couple of young ones applying to dental school right now. One is in dental school right now, and I tell them all the time, listen, just don't take it quite so seriously. I think we get trained to, everything is the end of the world. And early in my profession, I might even been a dental student when somebody told me, they kind of shrugged and said, well, at least it's not brain surgery, right? We're working on teeth here, but more importantly, we're working on people. And they just want you to be honest. They want you to be straight up with them. It's so rare, at least where we practice, that they want to know about their teeth. They want to know about you. They want to know how you can help them. And so that's been always kind of my philosophy with it is get to know the patient, find out what they're after, why they're even in the chair today, and what makes them tick. And just that level of communication, I think it just for me is always, I hope it displays that I'm interested in them first. um, Dentists can kind of get a bad reputation, I think, a lot of times from telling them about what's wrong with what the patient wants to know what's wrong with them first. It's like, don't do that. We're all great diagnosticians to some degree, and I think it's just easier to get to know them on a personal level first.
Yeah. So I'm guessing you guys probably laugh a lot. Is there a lot of laughter? Like if I,
There's there's an inappropriate amount of laughter. Yeah, we have a terrific. I mean, the team that we have around me is. I haven't met every team in the world, but they've got to be the best in the world. They are so hardworking and just come to work every day with a good attitude, good sense of humor. I think they love it there. I know I love having them there, and that's a huge key for me.
right. Okay. So go back to that. Again, let's say I'm a young dentist or I'm just getting out of dental school. You probably didn't have that the whole time. You've learned a few lessons. So give me your secret sauce. Like what? Because Kevin, if I'm listening, I want that. What's your secret sauce? Give me a at least something to hang on to.
Oh my gosh, there is no secret, that's for sure.
Okay.
Uh, Gratitude. If I had to pick one word, it's gratitude. I've never even, and I've had some employees we've had to get rid of. I think we all have team members that didn't work the way you wanted it to, and that kind of thing. But if you show gratitude towards a staff member, a team member, it's not about the money so much with them. I mean, my thing is I want to have the highest paid team around, but I think more importantly to that, I want them all to always feel like they're effective at work, and I think that's really what we all want, right?
Right.
But I've always made sure that it's not just about the pay rate. It's not just about what they get to take home at the end of the day. It's more about making sure they feel empowered and comfortable at work and know that what they do makes a difference.
Yeah.
Particularly like my assistants, my chairside assistants, I have three. They are so good. And each of them, when I hired them, I said, my goal is that I get you trained better than most dentists around. And they kind of look like, well, I'm an assistant. What do you mean? And they are. I mean, after about a year and a half, there's a lot to know, but really the procedures that we do, after you see it a few times, they get to pick it up and they are so sharp. They're picking out occlusal disorders. They're seeing why, patients with bicuspid extractions tend to have more joint disorders and pain and just all around dental problems. And they pick it out and it becomes obsessive a little bit for them, but it really has driven them to be terrific at what they do, and that's been helpful.
Yeah. So you're in Holland, Michigan,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And so, I mean, Kevin, if I'm in Michigan, like, where do you send your team? There's nothing around here that I could send them to. I'm guessing you're a big fan of going to continuing education prior to the pandemic and
Yeah.
making the investment that way. Is that correct?
Oh, I think that's a huge thing. I know when I started, I'm a full disclosure. I'm a faculty member for the Dawson Academy, and got to know Pete and John Cranham really well over the years. But that all started. I was about a year in to my profession, and I didn't love it. And I was freaked out because here, you take on an enormous amount of debt and work your butt off to become a dentist. And then you get out and you find out you don't love it. And you put yourself, and I'm sure there's people that Kirk, that are in that position, right? And a friend of mine and I the only reason we picked the Dawson Academy was it was in Florida and they had a class in February. We were looking to just get out of the winter. That was it. And so we took our golf clubs down to the Dawson Academy thinking that we would go for the first day and end up playing golf Saturday and Sunday before going back to our offices. But it changed everything for me. I'd go in day to day and you do a crown here and a crown there and a bite splint and all the basic dentistry stuff. And I was okay at cutting a tooth, but sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't, right? You'd get a
Right.
patient with a sore tooth after you worked on them, or they keep breaking teeth, or who knows what. I mean, the things that we try and solve for patients, the problems that come up can be so tricky. And I'm like, man, I don't know. I don't know
Right.
why some things work and some things don't.
Right.
And
Well,
so,
you go. Keep going.
okay, so yeah, I mean, so we went down to the academy, and day one of hearing Pete and John and Glenn DuPont discuss what they did. I remember it wasn't even the full day; it was lunchtime, and my dad had called, and so he's like, "Hey, how's your conference going? Are you on the course yet?" And I said, "No." I said, "All I can say, Dad, is this must be how they felt when they found out the Earth wasn't flat." That was my that where I was in my career,
Yeah.
and couldn't believe it.
That's
So the two of us, my buddy and I, signed up for the rest of the academy. Took all the courses in I think it was 13 or 14 months. We had the entire curriculum done.
that's awesome.
And that completely changed the trajectory of what I was doing and where I was going with my career.
Yeah.
And so it's something that I think a lot of our students now, they come to a few of the courses. People take 2 years, 5 years, 15 years to complete the curriculum. It's expensive, it's time away, it's all these things, but I really don't know how you can do this job effectively. And what Pete would always harp on is the efficiency behind it, so that when you go home, you can leave it at work, right? You can enjoy your life. And
Right.
that's what I've gotten out of it. And to this day, I still love CE. Now I'm teaching more than I'm taking, but I still find myself in lectures and hands-on stuff pretty often.
Yeah, now go back to that because while the education's important, Pete was just a great teacher in uncovering the puzzle. It's keeping the fire lit. You come back, you're excited. You also meet some pretty cool people along the way, like lifelong relationships when you get away from your family. Now, I have a lot of kids too. There
Yeah.
is some value to just compartmentalizing a continuing education effort where you're like, honey, I'm just going to go and I'm just going to immerse myself into it instead of just sticking my toe in it and racing home type of thing. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is you really have to jump in. And I think what's happening in dentistry right now, certainly the PPOs are out there and taking over and that kind of thing. There's a big divide right now too. And two things are going to happen. There's going to be a corporate or PPO style takeover in dentistry. And I think it's happening in a lot of areas of the country. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with practicing in those situations. For me, it's just not for me. And I think the only way you can avoid that if you want to run a truly comprehensive practice is to learn the stuff that they don't teach you in dental school, and you have to do it all in. You can't tiptoe around this and do a little of that, but then go back. Like, you just have to dive in and trust the multitudes of people that have done it that way and developed really, really good practices because of it.
Right.
Yeah, but to your point too, one of the best things that happened to me through the CE is the people I met. I mean, there's so many energizing individuals. John Cranham's one of them. He and I have become really good friends. Kim Daxon is easily my best friend in dentistry. I think she's been on your show too.
She's awesome.
Kimmy is easily the most talented individual I know, but just the most humble and most fun. We get to travel together. They've become, as far as I'm concerned, family,
Yeah.
and it's just amazing who you get to meet along those roads.
Yeah, you could tell Kim this. Pete Dawson gave me a photo of her and put a circle in a thing called the circle of productivity. And so I've used a slide. There's only one slide I've used consistently for probably 15 years. It's been Kimmy on that slide. So like
Uh,
every time I show it, she goes, "That's me," and I go, "I know. Pete gave it to me years ago." So it's all good stuff. Now, one of the things I love just being honest and transparent as you are, you said, I'm not like one of those people that's like, you gotta just come to my camp. You gotta be an open-minded. Can you talk about that's another divide that happens in dentistry? It's important to just have an open mind on different teaching philosophies.
yeah, there's so many people. I've been really fortunate to be influenced by a number of terrific clinicians and research people and all that. The Dawson Academy is great. They've been around a long time. Same philosophy, kind of with Pankey. Pankey's terrific. If you're West Coast, Spear, Coyce. What's interesting to me is, those are the four really big ones, right?
Right. Right.
And they all kind of teach a variation, so to speak, of the same thing. We're all talking about seated joint positions. They're all occlusion based type of dentistry. So, I don't think you can make a bad choice. They all have terrific curriculums. They all focus on truly comprehensive dentistry and teaching you how to carry that out in a private practice. And I really think their philosophies are all in line with one another, as much as they may want to pick on each other. I know there's a few Coyce and Spear people around here, and some of the things that are published, they act like they've invented the same type of mousetrap. But but really it all kind of leads back to what Pete started years and years ago. Each of those curriculums are great, and as long as they're teaching the seated joint positions and some level of a program, so to speak, on how to go through and treat these patients and help them to the best of our ability, I think it's wonderful to be involved with.
Yeah. Now, so go back to the journey. So if somebody embarks on the journey, they get to learn a lot. You probably after that first course at Dawson, you got very excited, and you can see dentists come back and they get so focused on like centric relation, anterior guidance, and all this. And what help us understand like how you kept the human side of it just going, and just like in your new patient experience, give me an example of it. Is it a lot of, "Hey, look, I'm just trying to get to know you first, not I'm gonna put your face in this thing and do all these measurements." How do you see that process?
Yeah, everybody has to learn and implement at their own levels, right? And I know when I first got back, boy, I quickly became a model factory. Everybody's getting CR bites and this and that, and I don't think that's wrong. I just think it isn't going to work real well, and it didn't for me. Once you learn these things, you just want to go fix the whole world, and it's part of our culture today too, right? Like we want everything to work out right now, and if not now, sooner than now. and and it doesn't happen that way. I think one thing that we maybe fail at in getting across to the students is, yes, we can teach you how to do this. Yes, we can give you the protocols and all of the information and knowledge to really, really help patients far and wide. But you do have to figure out a way to implement that in a practice, and it isn't going to be for every single patient that walks through your door. Um, and that's okay. Pete used to say that, but I think we lost that in all the other information that would come out. Um, there's nothing wrong with working in a patient, fixing the patient's problem and helping them out that way, and maybe just planting those seeds. But for me, it took 3 to 5 years of really, sitting down and focusing on, a certain patient's problems and just helping them understand it. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean they're all going to say yes. It doesn't mean your, revenue is instantly going to go from 50 grand to 100 grand to 200 grand a month. But over time, over a few years, if it takes 10 years, you're building these things one brick at a time. And
Yeah.
you just have to be patient and enjoy that journey.
Yeah, and having the right mindset. John was a great teacher for me, and he and even Drew Cobb, they relieved a lot of the pressure. And when I started hearing talk about even general and specialty patients, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you guys figured out something that everybody's been working on years." Because he thought everybody had to go. It took the pressure off of a lot of young dentists to go, "No," John's like, "No, no, no, not everybody. Like there are gonna be some people that come to you that are gonna be wanting what you do, and then there's gonna be other good people just moving to the neighborhood, and those are gonna take some time." So,
Yeah,
is that part of your learning along the process too?
that's exactly right. You can't force, you never want to force people into doing treatment because it isn't going to work well for you.
Right.
It has to be their decision, and your job is to help them understand the problem. Pete used to say any reasonable person will do the dentistry once they understand the problem, and that's always rung true with me. Is
Yeah.
spend your time getting to know the patient and the patient's circumstances, and helping them understand what's going wrong. Fortunately, in dentistry, it's pretty rare that things all fall apart overnight, right? Like we can watch people kind of slowly deteriorate. And if you treat it in a year or 2 years, that's going to be okay.
Yeah.
There's so few things we can't tackle, in that short of a time frame.
Right. So do you have a signature or hallmark, like, thing that you try to do with like, I'll just tell you one of mine. Like, I always wanna say, I love humor. Like, if we could find a commonality and laugh about anything, even if it's something I just did that's really stupid, it sets the tone for just, like, us knowing at least opening the door. Is there anything that's, like, hallmark? If I was your dental assistant, I would say, "Yes, Doctor Cross does this almost every time." What is it?
Oh man. I think they're writing a book on the folksy euphemisms that I have. There's just one after another. I mean, I usually will have a one-liner available for just about anybody. I've told um, elderly patients if they see a light, don't walk towards it. It's just I don't know where these things come from, but I think that would be my MO. Is I'm pretty well armed with the one-liner for just about everybody.
The one-liner, and you've got the assistant who's mouthing the words to your joke as you're saying it type of
Yeah,
thing. I've only
it,
heard this one 72 times, you know?
that's it does get repeated here and there, but I try and always have a new one ready.
Yeah, that is awesome. That is awesome. And, you know, do you have I don't even know anything about your team. Do you have a big team, a small team? Like, how big is your team?
Yeah, so we have 14 people on our staff. Most three of them, three assistants, three front desk, and then gosh, I don't know how many hygienists. There's got to be like six of them. I don't believe in full-time work anymore, so none of my hygienists work 4 days. We everybody kind of splits up, and what I found with that, the guy that I used to work for was like adamant, like, oh, we're only gonna have 4 day a week hygienists. We're gonna have morning huddles every morning at 7:30 and staff meetings every second Tuesday at noon, and people, it was just such a drag. So I said I want to be the opposite of that. So with hygiene, I have a large hygiene team, and everybody's got their assigned days. And then what happens is if we all have young kids, if somebody needs a day off or has a school function or sports or whatever, I always have somebody to cover. And so there's just a great synergy with that. We have two lab technicians that work too. We run a full like digital milling units and 3D printing and all this kind of stuff, a full three-shape lab. So two of the staff members are in the back, and we make probably 80% of our fixed Kross type stuff right in house. So I get you. And you said you have a control issue. I have a control issue as well. But it's really been fun to learn that. We've been doing that for about 5 years now. What's really cool is neither one of our lab techs have any background at all in dentistry. They didn't know
What?
numbers.
That's wild.
They didn't know an incisor from a molar.
How did you
And
find that? How did they
oh, there's a long story how this happened. But yeah, they've learned it, and with three shape, it's almost easier to train somebody from the ground up than it is to take somebody that's been doing it for 20 years and try and retrain them on newer protocols, right?
Right.
So that's the tact we took. The one has a master's degree in color theory from an art college, and so her ability to see colors is way better than mine. And so with porcelain work, she happens to do a ton of pottery on the side, so she's familiar with porcelain and translucency and how all that takes shape. So she's been just incredible, and she's a very driven individual to begin with. But it's amazing the kind of stuff she churns out.
Yeah. Well, again, like with that many people and aspiring to do such great stuff, how do you pull them all together? Do you guys do fun stuff on a regular basis? Like what there's got to be something that if you don't have regular team meetings or regular huddles or like I'm sure you've got something that keeps you all together
We go
rowing
to
in
the
the same
bar a
direction.
lot. Our staff meetings are typically
Do you really? Like right around the corner? Like,
just in town. Like
yeah.
we'll have typically if we have a staff meeting, it's going to be at 3 o'clock on a Thursday, and we'll go chat about stuff if it needs to get taken care of. But we make it fun. We're going to get out of the office probably once or about every 6 weeks, something like that. I'll send them to do like a fun team event, whether it's spa day, if we do it like a dinner, those types of things. Make sure they feel appreciated and that kind of stuff. Certainly with COVID, that got waylaid a little bit. Being in Michigan, they're just now really opening things back up. But in years past, I mean, it's once a month, once every 6 weeks, we'll do something fun like that.
Yeah. So do you work the same schedule as like John and Drew do? Drew's like shaving it back an extra hour every time. Like I think he works now 3 hours a day. I have no idea, but those guys once they got a hold of that, I was like, you're working less and you're making more? Like it was a big shift. But so are you working the 7 to 3 thing or
No, no.
no? Okay, never
So,
mind.
so
Next
uh, John told me a few years ago, like dentists try and take, everybody takes 2 months off throughout the year, but
right.
some people do it, in 10-minute increments. And the other influence in my life is Kim Daxon, and she and I have this ongoing thing. I try and work. The joke is single digit days a month, so less than 10 days a month. I'm not as good as Kim is at this, but every year I've either cut hours or um, just shave things back. I learned to be able to take vacations and get out of the office and enjoy. And I will tell you, Kirk, every year my revenue's grown.
Wait, your
And
practice doesn't die when you go away from your practice?
no, right? And actually, we just booked the whole month of February off next year just to get away and get out of the winter. And I kind of look at this as being really purposefully planned, right? We work really hard when we're there, and the staff knows this too. And we really do a lot of dentistry, and we do it well. But for me, for somebody that's is with such little talent and such little brain power, I got to work really hard while I'm there to make it work. So I need the downtime. I want to do this for a lot of years yet, and I just don't like that burnout feeling. I think that's something we've all suffered with at some point in our careers.
Yeah.
So I'm very intentional with the time away. I want to be able to know my kids and just spend time, whether it's with them or whether it's fishing or building relationships with friends and stuff like that. That's more important for me in the grand scheme of things. And dentistry is such a neat profession that it gives us the ability to do that. And I think that's my favorite part of the profession.
Yeah, I love hearing you say that because that's so powerful. I can hear it in your voice. I have no doubt. And you're not giving yourself enough credit. I know you're talented and you're sharp up there. But Kevin, help me out if I'm a young dentist. Let's say I'm 32. I just bought a practice. I'm stressed. Like, what would you say to me about the next 20, 30 years, about the future of dentistry?
Everybody's stressed. You know, I would say take a step back and really understand what kind of dentist you want to be. Because what's neat with this job, with this profession, is you can carve out your little niche, and maybe you don't have to do it all. Um, I just think it's so important to identify the ways that you can help patients and what you enjoy doing, and taking control of that. Um, and if you don't enjoy it, or if it brings stress into your life, then don't do it. There are people around that are willing to help. If it means never doing another root canal, um, don't. You don't have to. Don't feel. I don't. I feel bad when I hear people worried about financial pressures or revenue or trying to hit these financial goals in their practice, because to me that just drives that stress. And so my advice to a young dentist would be find out what you really, really love about practicing dentistry and target that.
Yeah. Very well said. Very well said. Well, any last thoughts, buddy? I have thoroughly enjoyed this, and I do want to come hang out sometime, either at the one of your team meetings at the pub around the corner, or just come hang out and practice one time. But give us some last thoughts on just the way you see this, or even the future for you.
Oh, I'm going to be doing this for a few years yet, but just enjoy the ride. I'm really looking at, you know, I'm 37 years old. There are days where I feel like I'm 57. There's days where I feel like I'm 27. So um, I'm so thankful. I have no idea how I ended up in this job, but I'm so thankful that it's here, and I hope certainly that a lot of the young dentists that watch this show or this podcast know that there's a huge resource here for them.
That's awesome, buddy. Well, I can't thank you enough. I know I don't get you all day and you got the kids there, but I'm just grateful to have you for a little bit. I'd love to have you come back and teach in the future on anything. Actually, I'd love to have you come back and show us how you're going to take February off because I want to be you. And I'm sure a lot of other people, I live in Wisconsin, you're in Michigan, like leaving for that month, that's kind of where the month you kind of fry your brain a little bit and you're like, why do we live
Right.
here?
Yeah. The
So
weather's no good, I'm one of those people with undiagnosed seasonal affective disorder, right? Like winter hits me hard, and
I like that.
so we've always done the week vacation and the 10-day vacation and that kind of stuff, and especially with kids, by the time you get there, it takes 2 or 3 days, and then you're already thinking about going home. So we made the decision. We just said, you know what? The only reason we don't do this is because we think we can't.
Right.
And so my wife and I talked about it. We got back to our teams and said, listen, this is what we're thinking. What do you guys think? And they're like, are you kidding me? That's a great idea. Get out of here. So
Oh,
you
yeah.
can do it, right? So maybe they
Yeah.
are. But no, that's part of the perks with this job. You get a reasonably good income, and the world's out there, man. You can do anything you want, within reason anyway. But yeah, it's doable in this job.
Amen, brother. Well, thank you for being on. I really appreciate it. So make sure you check this out. Kevin's going to be teaching at the Dawson Academy. And then what's your website? If somebody's listening, want to check out more of who you are, what you do, how do I find you?
Um, Practice website is Michigan Avenue Dentistry, all spelled out.com. Or, I mean, shoot, we can pass along email or cell phone. I'm always open to take questions and shoot, just to talk for a little bit. I have no problem with that.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, I'll put those in the show notes. So check those out. Reach out to Kevin. Kevin, thanks. Stick around while we say goodbye to everybody else. But thank you guys for listening to the Best Practices Show. If you enjoyed today, make sure you share this with your friends. Keep sending us suggestions for things that you guys want to see because I'll line them up and make sure we get some people that give you some great perspective, create a better practice, a better life. But until we see you guys next time, keep watching the Best Practices Show. You guys enjoy the rest of your day.